In this video, we're going to cover inorganic methods of business growth with a focus on the advantages and disadvantages of mergers and takeovers. There are two types of business growth, organic and inorganic. Organic growth is when a business expands by its own efforts and business operations, whereas inorganic growth is growth that is achieved as a result of mergers and takeovers. This video is solely focusing on inorganic growth, but if you want to learn about organic growth, head over to our video, Organic Growth Explained. So, the business has decided to take an inorganic approach to growth, but what's the difference between mergers and takeovers? Mergers are where two or more companies come together to form one brand new company. The two companies no longer exist as single businesses as they join forces to move forward as a single new entity, rather than remaining separately owned and operated. Mergers bring growth to the businesses involved as they are now able to combine their assets to become larger, hopefully more efficient and competitive in the market. One of the most well-known mergers recently was between two American food companies, Kraft and Heinz, to form a new company, the Kraft Heinz Company, in 2015. This merger made Kraft Heinz the fifth largest food and beverage company in the world. However, takeovers are different to mergers, as this is when one business decides to purchase and own another business. With this purchase, they now own land, buildings, technology and intellectual property. The key difference is that a new company is not being formed. One business is taking the assets of the other, usually a smaller business. A great example of a takeover is when Facebook, now Meta, bought Instagram in 2012 for $1 billion. This meant that Instagram was now a brand within Facebook's portfolio, and that all Instagram's assets, including the brand name and technology, was under Facebook's control. Facebook also tried to do the same thing with Snapchat, but any offers have so far been rejected. There are different types of methods in which a business can merge with or take over another business. The first is backward vertical integration. This occurs when a business takes control of another business earlier in the supply chain. In other words, a backwards vertical integrated business controls some aspects of the supply chain. This means that it not only distributes the product it sells, it also can be involved in the creation and development of that product before it reaches the customer. An example of backward vertical integration could be a tyre company such as Michelin, completing a takeover of a producer of rubber that could be used in the manufacturing of Michelin's tyres. This would mean that the business owned a company producing the raw materials used in the manufacturing of their tyres. The benefit to Michelin of taking over the rubber producer would be that they had greater control further back in their supply chain, which in turn should reduce the unit costs and improve their access to the rubber used in the manufacturing of the tyres. Another type of vertical integration is forward vertical integration. This occurs when one business takes control of another that operates at a later stage in the supply chain, closer to the end consumer. One clear example of forward integration is Amazon's takeover of Whole Foods. Amazon was a small player in the grocery business, but after acquiring 460 retail outlets in the takeover of Whole Foods, they now have the ability to sell groceries directly to the consumer face to face, moving them one step closer to where the majority of people do their food shopping. Finally, and probably the most common type of merger or takeover, is one that sees horizontal integration. This is when businesses come together either through a merger or takeover that operates in the same industry at the same stage in the supply chain. Basically, before the merger or takeover, these two businesses were likely competitors. The Kraft and Heinz merger to create the Kraft Heinz Company is a perfect example of horizontal integration, as they were two competitors in the same food and beverage industry and were at the same stage in the supply chain. Kraft and Heinz went from competing in this market to being able to pool their resources and become one of the largest food and beverage companies in the world. no longer competing for the attention of the same type of customer, but working together as one new entity. One of the key reasons for inorganic growth is that business growth can be achieved quicker inorganically than in comparison to growing organically. But there are a variety of advantages and disadvantages that need to be considered when it comes to mergers and takeovers as a way of achieving inorganic growth. The first advantage is that once the merger or takeover is complete, the business will see an immediate increase in revenue. This is due to the sales of both businesses now being combined. Secondly, the business can take advantage of economies of scale, leading to lower costs. A business's size is related to whether it can achieve an economy of scale. Larger companies have the ability to produce more and spread the cost of production over a large amount of goods, which in turn reduces the unit costs of those goods. The final advantage is that competition can be reduced, which in turn can increase market share very quickly. Imagine if Asda completed a merger with Sainsbury's. This merger would mean one less competitor to deal with, but would also increase their market share from around 17% each to a combined 34%, taking them from the second and third largest supermarkets in the UK separately to the number one by a considerable margin, as Tesco has around a 20% market share. This is something Asda or Sainsbury's could not do as quickly using an organic method, but through a merger it would be possible, and once approved it would happen relatively quickly. However, this is where regulators could step in. A disadvantage of attempting mergers and takeovers is that regulators have the ability and power to block mergers and takeovers that would not be in the interest of the public in terms of competition, choice and price. This did actually happen when Asda and Sainsbury's attempted a merger back in 2019. The merger was blocked by the Competition and Markets Authority, as they said the merger would lessen competition, raise prices at supermarket petrol stations, and lead to longer checkout queues. However, Sainsbury's and Asda argued it would have cut their costs, which would have in fact lowered prices for customers. But despite this, it was blocked and shows that regulators do have the ability to limit inorganic growth. Another disadvantage is that takeovers have a cost to acquire the other business. This is an upfront cost that the business needs to pay. Facebook paid $1 billion for Instagram and Google $1.65 billion for YouTube. This is an upfront cost to the business with no guarantee that the takeover will even be successful. However, these can pay off, as YouTube is now generating over $19 billion in revenue annually, which has resulted in a considerable return on Google's initial purchase price. The last disadvantage is integrating two different corporate cultures and management systems can be really difficult when mergers and takeovers happen. Companies have their own identities and ways of doing things, and this can be extremely hard to navigate when business mergers or takeovers happen. All in all, inorganic growth is definitely a beneficial way of growing rapidly. Some of the largest companies on the planet have grown via mergers and takeovers. Thanks for watching the video, we really do appreciate you watching to the end. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more weekly business videos.